this segment, we are going to be discussing the subject of if you can sing classical, you can sing anything. This is untrue, okay? And I'm going to give you a couple of demonstrations and tell you why this is untrue. But I don't want to rain on your parade and tell you not to study classical. If you want to study classical, you can definitely study classical singing and also study contemporary singing and sing the both. But they are two completely different genres of singing and two completely different techniques. So let's take it back firstly here and talk very briefly about contemporary singing. Contemporary singing covers anything from jazz, R&B, rock, hard rock, pop, theatre. That is contemporary singing. Classical singing is classical singing. It is a completely different genre and a completely different technique. Some of the techniques in both of these genres are the same. For instance, breathing. We always have to breathe properly through the diaphragm. We have to sing in key. We have to open up our mouth and let the sounds out. But let's talk about classical singing firstly and why it's different from contemporary singing. Classical singing was originally done way back in the Roman era where they had no electricity and they had to sing in generally open-air coliseums, auditoriums, or specially designed amphitheatres that would tear up so that the sound would travel up and the people at the back could hear. Now, for this reason, we had to fill this massive sound with power. So the voice had to be very powerful. There were no microphones then. So there was a lot of breath support and the sound had to be projected out, whether that be in the high female range or true voice with the male range. So a lot of classical singing is made for projection. So it's made to carry and to be heard all the way back into the coliseums and amphitheatres. Now, as you know, in contemporary singing, we don't need to do that. Yes, we can use that very loud technique sometimes, but we normally use that with a crying technique. But in contemporary singing, we can sing very quietly at times into a microphone and still be heard. I want you to know. Now, obviously, if we're playing, singing in an auditorium or a coliseum, the people at the back, maybe even the people at the front, aren't going to be able to hear that, singing that quietly. So that is the big main point between the two techniques. Second main point is that with the male singers in classical singing were not ever allowed to sing in falsetto, so that they weren't allowed to go, won't you please, please help me? They had to keep all their sounds all in true voice. So when they were practicing scales, they'd be going, wee, 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 wee. They wouldn't be able to go, wee, 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 and let it go in a falsetto or have a light sound. With the females were allowed to go into falsetto very early whenever they wanted to get that big soprano sound, so they were allowed to go into it early. With contemporary singing, as you know, we do use the falsetto, but we also like to drag the true voice up as high as we can. If we want to sing, if I were a boy, in true voice to have that strong, we don't want to go, if I were a boy, in falsetto. So again, that's the second part that separates classical and contemporary singing. Two big points there. If you have studied classical singing, you are going to find it very hard to sing a lot of contemporary songs, especially being a female, because the classical teacher will let you go into falsetto whenever you want. I have had this happen to me with a lot of singers that have come in for lessons, had classical lessons, and have gone into falsetto very, very early, being females. And I've had to train them to keep their voice in true voice longer so that we can sing up higher in true voice. Again, with the males, I've had male singers that have come in at classical lessons and they've had this bellow to their voice. Oh! So they had this bellow, and we don't need that in a contemporary singing voice, because we want to sound nice all the time, because we have the aid of a microphone or singing inside when we are singing our contemporary songs. So that is a little bit about the difference between classical and contemporary singing. And as I said, in contemporary singing, we're always using a microphone, and we can sing very quietly and use the microphone to our advantage. Again, I don't want to rain on your parade. You can definitely study both forms of singing and sing those separately. I'm going to leave you with this one last point as well too. Theatre. A lot of theatre students think, oh, I've got to study classical. No, it's contemporary singing. Listen to Les Mis, listen to The King and I. It's all contemporary singing. It's not classical singing. They are two completely different genres. I hope that this segment has helped you out, especially for the classical singers wanting to come over and sing contemporary, or vice versa. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next segment of the 5 Minute Singer. Bye-bye.